Last summer was the hardest time of my life. I was 45, stuck on my family's farm. I had spent years trying to keep it going. The drought hit us hard. I felt like I was fighting a losing battle. I didn't know if I could keep going, but I didn't have many choices. One stormy night, things changed. The rain was pounding, and the wind howled against the farmhouse. I sat alone, looking at the empty fields. I heard a knock at the door. It surprised me. Who would be out in that weather? I opened the door, half expecting a neighbor. Instead, a stranger stood there. He was dressed in dark rain gear, his face hidden. "I can help you grow your crops," he said. I felt uneasy, but also desperate. "What do you want from me?" I asked. He smiled, and it sent a chill down my spine. I nodded anyway. The next morning, after the storm, everything felt different. The farm was quiet, too quiet. I stepped outside and gasped. My fields were green and alive. It felt amazing after so much despair. A wave of hope rushed through me. But as I walked closer, I noticed the shadows were darker than ever. They seemed to stretch and shift around the edges of the fields. Days went by, and my crops continued to grow. People in town started talking about my farm, praising my good fortune. But at night, I couldn't shake the whispers that filled my home. They lingered in the corners of my mind. I tried to ignore them, but they were always there. Each day, I saw the shadows growing, wrapping around my crops, like they were feeding. It got worse. My livestock started disappearing. I thought they'd wandered off, but then I found an empty pen. Panic flooded me. "Where are you?" I shouted, but the silence swallowed my words. I began to worry. I replayed that night over and over in my head. As I stood in my beautiful fields, I felt eyes on me. I turned quickly. Something moved in the darkness just beyond the edge of the light. My heart raced. The shadows crept closer. I remembered the stranger's words, "You're not the only one who needs to feed." My stomach sank at the realization. I wanted to run, but my legs felt heavy. No answers came. The whispers grew louder, echoing in my mind. I glanced back at the lush crops, but they didn't feel like a blessing anymore. They felt like a curse. I didn't know what I had unleashed. Was I helping myself or letting something dark into my life? I thought I had struck a deal, but now I felt trapped. I could see the shadows moving, waiting. There was nothing I could do. I felt caught in a nightmare I couldn't escape. The next day, I woke with a sense of dread. I grabbed a cup of coffee, but couldn't drink it. My mind swirled. What kind of help had I accepted? The crops looked great, but the shadows around them felt suffocating. I needed to understand what was happening. I decided to visit the town. Maybe someone else had experienced something similar. I went to the diner, where the booth by the window always brought me comfort. I found Martha, the waitress, who had lived here all her life. I needed to talk to someone who understood. "Martha," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "have you heard anything about strange happenings on farms lately?" She looked at me quizzically. "You mean like your farm? It's thriving, isn't it?" "Yeah, but it feels off. I feel like something is wrong, you know?" Martha nodded. "I've heard stories. Farmers who made deals for riches, they always pay a price." My heart sank. "What do you mean?" She leaned in closer, her voice lowering. "Some say they were never the same after. Crops thrive, but—" She trailed off, her eyes darting to the door as if afraid of being overheard. "But what?" I pressed. "Livestock gone, people going missing." A chill ran through me. My missing animals finally struck home. I had thought they had simply wandered. Now I felt a knot in my stomach forming. "Is there a way to break the deal?" I asked, desperation creeping into my tone. Martha shook her head slowly. "Once it's made, it's made. You have to confront the one who made the deal." I felt a wave of panic wash over me. What if the stranger returned? What if he was waiting for me in the shadows? I left the diner, my mind racing, heart pounding. Back at the farm, night fell, and every creak of the old house echoed through the silence. I peered outside toward the fields. The shadows seemed thicker, crawling like smoke over my crops. I shivered and turned away. I had to figure out how to face the stranger again. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me. It was soft, almost like whispering. I spun around, heart racing. My breath caught when I noticed it. A figure standing just beyond the barn door. A familiar dark silhouette watched me. "Do you need something?" I shouted, trying to sound brave. The figure stepped closer, revealing a menacing smile I recognized instantly. My blood ran cold. That's when I saw it. The shadows, thickening and swirling, moved toward me like a wave. I felt trapped. "Come closer," the stranger said, his voice smooth and inviting. It made my skin crawl. Part of me wanted to run, but another part found itself drawn to him. He reached out a hand, and I could feel the temperature drop. "It's time to discuss your debt." I took a step back, but my body wouldn't obey. I felt the shadows encircling me, drawing nearer. Every instinct told me to escape, but my feet were glued to the spot. What had I done? I stood there, rooted in place. The stranger's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp. A cold dread washed over me. My breathing quickened, and all I could think about was the stories Martha had told, payments made and lives spent. "Do you see your crops?" he asked, gesturing toward the field, the glint of moonlight shimmering off the healthy corn. "You're living the dream, aren't you?" His voice dripped with honeyed malice. "Yes, but," I choked out, my voice faltering. "What do you want from me?" "Not much," he replied casually. "Just a little favor, a simple exchange to keep this bounty flourishing." He took a step closer, the shadows creeping as he moved. I finally managed to break free from the paralyzing grip of fear and stumbled backward, my heart racing. I was disoriented. What kind of favor? My mind spiraled with possibilities. "What do you want?" I demanded, though my voice trembled. He chuckled, a sound so chilling it made my skin crawl. "You'll find out soon enough. Just know there's no escaping this." Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, but I felt something else. An instinct propelled me. I bolted toward the barn, the wooden doors creaking against my frantic charge. I slammed them shut and leaned against it, gasping for breath. I glanced around the dim interior, searching for something, anything that could protect me. In the far corner, a collection of old tools caught my eye. I grabbed an iron pitchfork and held it tightly, the cold metal reassuring against my sweaty palms. The air felt thick with tension as I listened. Outside, the stranger wasn't just waiting. He was whispering. Quiet words that seemed to float through the cracks in the barn. I could almost make them out. They felt like a chant. "Crops and wealth, shadows and fear," he murmured. "What is lost will bring you near." I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block out the words that wormed their way into my thoughts. I had to think. I had to find a way out of this mess before it was too late. Then I remembered what Martha had said, confronting the one who made the deal. But how? What did that even mean? My mind raced as I rummaged through the barn, searching for anything that might hold answers. That's when I saw it. A weathered journal, half buried under hay. I pulled it out, desperate. Flipping through the pages, I gasped. It belonged to the previous owner of the farm.
The entries detailed his triumphs, but ended abruptly. In the last entry, he wrote of a price that isn't just paid in gold. Hints of the shadowy figure were woven throughout, his words growing frantic. As I read, I realized I was running out of time. The chanting outside deepened, urgency building. And just then, I heard it, a knock on the barn door. A voice, softer now, but still full of that same insidious charm. "We need to talk about your debt." My heart raced.
It was now or never. I took a deep breath, clutching the journal to my chest, prepared to face the stranger one last time. I stepped away from the door, gripping the pitchfork tighter. My breath was shaky, every sound outside magnified. The stranger's voice wrapped around me like a thick fog, thick with allure and threat. I couldn't fall for it. I had to keep my wits about me. "Come on now, I promise you I won't bite," he called playfully. "Not yet, anyway." But there was a darkness in his playful tone. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, scanning the barn for a way out. The rear door stood ajar, a faint light flickering from the back of the barn. I needed a plan. "Martha said you can be reasoned with," I called out, my voice quieter than I intended. "If this is about an agreement, let's talk it over." A pause followed, too long for comfort. Then laughter, chilling and mocking, drifted through the cracks. "Oh, my dear, you misunderstand. This isn't a negotiation. This is a formality." Panic surged again, and I darted toward the back of the barn, pushing open the exit slightly and peering outside. The moon hung high, illuminating a path through the fields, but I wasn't fooled. The stranger wasn't far behind. I could feel it. The journal was still clutched in my hand. The last entry replayed in my mind. "Find his true name, and you may find your way free." What did that mean? My skin crawled with the implications. My decision was made. I had to confront him. But first, I needed answers. I ducked back into the barn, flipping through the journal's pages again. I searched for clues about the stranger, anything that could help me understand what I was dealing with. Then I saw it. A faded drawing on the next-to-last page caught my eye. It was a crude sketch of a figure, shadowy and indistinct, but it was the feet that struck me. They weren't human. They looked like hooves. My heart plummeted. The chanting outside picked up, growing more rhythmic, drawing me in. I could almost hear a low, pulsing sound, like a heartbeat. I had to break the cycle. Who are you?" I shouted suddenly, my voice strong, the question echoing through the barn. "What do you want from me?" Silence fell. The chanting stopped. I strained to listen, every breath feeling like I held my fate in my hands. "Who am I?" he replied, his voice low and ponderous. "I am the keeper of debts. But you should already know, for you made the choice long ago." A cold sweat ran down my back. My mind raced through years, trying to grasp when I could have made such a choice. Then it hit me, a memory emerging from deep within. The day I first laid eyes on the farm, the offers I'd received for this land. Had I unknowingly accepted a bargain? And just like that, the barn door flung open. The stranger stood silhouetted against the moonlight, a wicked smile stretching across his face. "You're about to find out," he said, with a gleam in his eye. I stumbled back, heart pounding. The shadows crawled forward around him, filling the barn. I had a decision to make, fight or flee. Either way, I was now entangled in a web that couldn't be unwoven. The chill of dread seeped into my bones as I prepared for what came next. I took a step forward, ready to confront whatever dark truth lay before me. even if it meant facing the monster himself. I stood frozen for a moment, caught between the urge to flee and the need to confront him. My grip tightened around the pitchfork as he stepped closer, his form becoming clearer in the moonlight. The shadows swirled around him as if alive. "What do you want from me?" I asked again, my voice wavering despite my resolve. He tilted his head, his smile widening as he approached. "Ah, you must know by now. It's not what I want. It's what you owe." The weight of his words sank in like a heavy stone. "I don't owe you anything," I shouted back, my frustration bubbling over. "I've worked this land for years. I've put everything into it." He laughed softly, a sound that chilled me to the bone. "You think the sweat on your brow is enough. Every choice has its cost. You've simply delayed the reckoning." I felt anger rise within me, mixing with fear. "I won't be a part of your games," I shouted, stepping back toward the flickering light at the rear of the barn. This was my chance to escape, to break free from his grip. "Oh, sweet Martha tried to warn you, didn't she?" He took another step closer, and the air thickened with tension. "But there's no running from what binds you to this place. You invited me in, even if you didn't know." As panic surged within me, I glanced down at the journal. What had I missed? I flipped pages hurriedly, seeking clarity. Then I found it, a name scrawled in an ornate script. It was tucked away, almost as an afterthought, beneath a warning. "Speak it, and you may reclaim your freedom." I looked up at the stranger, sensing the urgency of the moment. "What if I refuse to pay?" I pressed, my voice steadier now. He chuckled, but it wasn't a friendly sound. "That, my dear, would be most interesting. Refusal will bring consequences far worse than my visit. The dance will only grow darker." My heart raced as I narrowed my eyes at him. "What do you mean?" "Choose wisely," he said coolly, "for I will give you one chance to make amends." Suddenly, the barn felt like it was closing in around me. The shadows crept closer, almost whispering in a language I couldn't understand. I needed to act fast. My eyes darted back to the journal, and for the first time I felt its weight not as a burden, but as a source of hope. "What is your true name?" I demanded. "Tell me, so I can be free." He stopped in his tracks, his expression shifting, a flicker of something like anger breaking through the pleasant facade. "Names are powerful, child. You wield yours carelessly." I realized then I had more power than I thought. I took a deep breath and channeled every ounce of courage. "Your true name. Tell me." His smile vanished, replaced by a snarl. "You're playing a dangerous game." Then everything went dark. The barn was flooded with a suffocating silence, and a thick cloud enveloped me. The shadows twisted into terrifying forms. I reached out instinctively, desperate for something solid. When the darkness lifted, I found myself standing alone in the barn. The stranger vanished, but the thrumming pulses of his presence remained. And then I noticed it. A piece of parchment lay on the floor, its edges glowing faintly. I stepped closer, my hands trembling as I picked it up. The name I'd been searching for was written in bold letters. I swallowed hard, realizing that whatever I'd unleashed was now at my door, and there was no turning back. I stared at the parchment, my breath hitching as anxiety twisted in my stomach. The name was clear, but I had no idea what power it held. I could feel its weight, like a promise and a curse all at once. "Now what?" I whispered to myself, glancing around as if expecting the stranger to reappear. The barn felt emptier, but the silence echoed louder, pressing down on me. I folded the parchment and tucked it safely into my pocket. My heart was still racing, an uncomfortable reminder of how close I'd come to losing control. I had to think. I couldn't let fear dictate my next move. Stepping carefully out of the barn, I took a deep breath, letting the cool night air fill my lungs. The world outside was quiet, too quiet. A chill crept along my spine. There was something lurking out there. I needed answers, and the only place I could think to go was Martha's old cabin at the edge of the property. She always seemed to know things, even when no one else did. As I walked, the moon hung low, casting long, eerie shadows that danced around me. Each creak of the dried leaves felt like a whisper, urging me to hurry. With every step, the name on the parchment rang in my ears, an invitation that felt like a threat. When I reached the cabin, I hesitated at the door. The wood was warped and the paint chipped away, but it still stood tall against the encroaching darkness. I knocked, my heart pounding. "Martha," I called out softly. I had to know if she could help me. Silence answered. I pushed the door open and stepped inside.
Dust motes floated in the beam of moonlight cutting through the window. Shelves lined with jars of herbs and dried flowers filled the small space. The scent of something bitter and earthy lingered, both comforting and unsettling. "Martha?" I called again, a shiver racing through me. No response. I stepped further in, scanning the room for any sign of her. The fireplace was cold, the hearth empty. Then I spotted something on the table. A small, leather-bound book lay open, pages fluttering as if it had recently been touched. My pulse quickened. Was it her journal? I crossed the room, driven by an urgency I couldn't explain. As I reached for the book, a sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut behind me. I jumped back, knocking over a dusty jar. It shattered, and fragments scattered across the floor like sharp stars. I spun around, heart racing again. The air felt thicker, charged, as though something had entered the space with me. "This isn't funny," I shouted into the silence, but I knew I wasn't alone. And then I heard it, a low whisper, almost indistinguishable from the creaking of the cabin. It repeated a name. Benedict. I froze. The name was the same as the one on the parchment. Realization hit hard. "What does it mean?" I murmured, panic creeping in. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me in a chaotic chorus. They urged me to acknowledge the truth, to face the consequences of my choices. I felt the weight of the night pressing down, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Just then, I heard a soft thud from the other room. My instinct told me to run, but I hesitated, heart pounding in my throat. I turned back to the table, the open book beckoning me. "Please, show me," I whispered, reaching for the pages once more, hoping they would reveal the knowledge I needed to confront the darkness that had entered my life. But as my fingers brushed the paper, the air suddenly ignited with energy. A cold breeze swept past me, swirling the pages in a frenzy. I braced myself for what came next, knowing with chilling certainty that my confrontation wasn't over yet. I closed my eyes for a moment, overwhelmed by the surge of energy. The pages whipped around me, and I focused on the name skimming past. Benedict, I thought. The name felt heavy, like a chain, pulling me deeper into something I couldn't yet understand. Then everything went still. The pages settled once again, and in that silence I sensed a presence. It was a subtle vibration in the air, a stirring that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. I opened my eyes, and without knowing why, I called out, "What do you want from me?" The stillness answered back, but the weight of expectation hung thick. I turned my gaze to the book, hoping for clarity. The words that greeted me were not.
"To break the cycle, you must understand the pact made long ago," it read. My heart raced as I scanned the rest of the text. It detailed a hidden history of dark bargains and forbidden knowledge. It spoke of a man named Benedict who had made a grave decision, one that echoed through time, dragging others into its wake. The more I read, the more I felt the pull of dread unfurling in my stomach. My connection to this name was deeper than mere coincidence. Before I could process what I had learned, I noticed something shift in the shadows. A figure emerged, cloaked in darkness, their features obscured. Fear coursed through me. "Who are you?" My voice trembled, betraying my uncertainty. With slow, deliberate steps, the figure approached. "You seek answers, but some truths are like poison," it said, its voice as cold as the night itself. "Benedict's legacy is not yours to carry." "Why me?" I demanded, but even as I spoke, I felt the creeping realization that I was entangled in this legacy, whether I wanted to be or not. The figure paused, as if weighing its words. "You pulled the string by finding the parchment. Now you must choose how to weave it into your life." I felt my pulse quicken with the implications of that statement. "I didn't ask for this," I shouted. But my voice echoed back, as if the cabin itself were mocking me. "You claim ignorance, but the name has always been a part of you," it replied. "The choice remains. Embrace it or let go." I turned back to the book, heart racing. The lines blurred between what I wished for and what was thrust upon me. As I lifted my hand to turn another page, a sudden chill gripped the room. The shadows deepened around the figure, as if the darkness itself was hungry. And then, almost instinctively, I took a step back, my mind racing with doubt. What happens if I refuse? The figure's laughter was low and chilling. You cannot refuse what is already set in motion. Then, without warning, the cabin seemed to buckle under an unseen force. Everything spun, and the room around me warped and twisted. The candles flickered violently, casting frenetic shadows that danced wildly across the walls. In that moment, clarity pierced through my fear. I realized I had to act before whatever dark force was at play fully emerged. I needed to make a choice, confront the legacy or risk losing myself entirely. I gripped the book, determination hardening my resolve. It was now or never. If I have to face this, then I will. The figure's expression was inscrutable, but I sensed a flicker of something more. A challenge. "Very well," it stated, its voice echoing dangerously. "Prepare yourself." And just like that, the darkness surged towards me, the weight of years of choices pressing down, leaving me on the brink of a coast. Confrontation that I was not entirely sure I could win. The darkness rushed at me, twisting and curling like smoke. I felt its chill seep into my bones, wrapping around me like a suffocating shroud. Panic surged, but I forced myself to stand tall. "What do you want from me?" I shouted again, trying to regain control. The figure hesitated, just for a moment, then spoke. "The truth lies within the shadows of your thoughts." Its voice twisted through the air like a whispering wind. "You must confront what you hide." I had no time to think. I took a deep breath, pushing down the fear clawing at my throat. "What do you mean? What have I hidden?" I stepped forward, defiance swelling inside me. Suddenly, I was hit by a wave of memories, flickers of moments from my past. My childhood, filled with my mother's stories of legends, the tragic loss of my father, and skeletons in family closets that I had brushed aside. I hesitated, the shadows creeping closer as I fought against the tide of confusion. "Is this all connected to Benedict?" "Shadows cannot lie," the figure replied. "They reflect truth as well as fears." I felt my heartbeat quicken. You said I have a choice. What are the consequences of that choice? Everything, it hissed. The fabric of your life is woven from your decisions. To know your fate, you must seek the thread you've neglected. As the shadows surged, I remembered the old attic at my grandmother's house, where I found dusty boxes filled with letters and documents. I had stumbled upon secrets wrapped in time, things I hadn't wanted to face. The letters, I mumbled, realization dawning. They could shed light on all this. Then seek them, but beware. Some truths are like fire. They will burn those unprepared to wield them. I felt the dark force retract slightly, as if testing my resolve. My heart raced, but there was a flicker of clarity. I had to leave this cabin and find those letters. They could be the key to understanding the pact that knitted my fate with Benedict's. But before I could turn to leave, the figure surged forward again, its form becoming more defined, a face emerging from the shadows. You think you can escape? It snarled, its eyes glinting with malice. I took a step back, barely holding my ground. I won't stay here, I declared, trying to sound braver than I felt. I couldn't be trapped by this shadow or Benedict's legacy. In an instant, the cabin shifted again, the walls bending and groaning like tortured wood. I bolted past the figure, heart hammering as I rushed for the door. The ground beneath me trembled, and I could feel the weight of centuries pressing down. I burst through the door, breathing in the cold night air, but the shadows followed. I turned to run toward the old farmhouse, fear spurring me forward. As I sprinted, flashes of the letters filled my mind. The secrets they might unveil, and the dark legacy beckoning me to return. But with every step, I could hear the whispers of the figure growing faint. The cycle isn't broken until you understand your past. Those words echoed behind me. I didn't know what awaited me, but one thing was clear. I was in a fight against time. I needed to uncover the truth before it consumed me whole. That's when I saw it, a figure emerging from the trees, standing in my path. I skidded to a halt, my breath catching in my throat. The figure was cloaked in darkness, but a glint of light reflected off its eyes. It was tall, towering over me, and I could feel an unnatural energy pulsating from its silhouette. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer, trying to control the tremor in my voice. The figure took a slow step forward, its features becoming somewhat distinct. I recognized the face. It was a face from my past. "Gabriel?" I whispered. The last time I had seen him, we were kids playing in my grandmother's yard. "What are you doing here?" I felt a strange mix of confusion and recognition. He smiled, but it wasn't the warm expression I remembered. There was something sharp, something predatory. "You're not as surprised as I thought you'd be," he said smoothly. "After all, you must have sensed me lurking around. You've always had a knack for feeling out shadows." I stepped back, heart racing. "You have to be kidding. This isn't a joke, Gabriel. What are you involved with?" I remembered the tales of his family's sudden fall from grace, the whispers of dark deals made behind closed doors. "I'm not involved with anything you need to concern yourself with. I'm here because you're stepping into my territory." His tone shifted, becoming colder. "There are things about your family, about that farmhouse, that you don't understand. And if you go digging, you might unearth more than you bargained for." The memories of the letters flooded back to me, the attic's secrets clawing at the edges of my mind. I have to know. This could be the key to figuring out what happened to my father, to Benedict. "You think you want the truth?
Gabriel's laughter echoed through the trees, cold and mocking. Some truths are poisonous and not meant for the likes of you. I felt a shudder race through me. You don't get to decide that for me, I replied, the defiance bubbling up again. I want to uncover what's been hidden. Gabriel stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. Then you could lose more than you understand. You'll wade through blood and shadows. This is a game played with stakes you can't comprehend. I glanced back toward the farmhouse. Was it safe for me to return? What do you want then? To scare me off? He shook his head slowly. No, my dear, I want to help. But the truth you wish to find comes
at a price. Blindness isn't a gift. It's a curse when delving into this family's secrets. But I know what you seek, and I can guide you, if you let me. Trusting him felt like a bad idea. I had run from the shadows, only to find more now. But I needed to gamble. And if I refuse, then you'll be lost. Lost in the dark, just like your father. His words struck like a heavy blow. I felt the weight of his gaze boring into me, forcing me to decide. The truth of my family hung suspended in the air, tantalizing and frightening all at once. I took a shaky breath. What's the price for your guidance? Gabriel smiled, but I could hear the tension in his voice, the looming threat behind it. Everything comes at a cost. Are you ready to pay? Before I could respond, the shadows stirred around us, darkening the world once more. I realized then that whatever choice I made next would shape everything, my past, my present, and my future. I had stepped deeper into the web, and there was no turning back now. I stood before Gabriel, feeling the weight of his words settle over me like a shroud. The air crackled with tension, an unspoken threat weaving around us. I had come too far to turn back now, but the darkness loomed, whispering unimaginable possibilities and dangers. What's the price for your guidance? I repeated, desperate yet resigned, my heart racing in anticipation. Was this the help I needed, or yet another snare? The shadows around us seemed to pulse, waiting for my choice. Gabriel's smile grew sharper, his features twisting into something almost predatory. You'll need to confront your family's legacy, the darkness that binds you. I took a step back, grounding myself. What does that mean? I demanded, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. What darkness? The same darkness that cloaked your father's fate, he replied, his gaze piercing through me. Benedict's tie to your lineage isn't just a story, it's a blood bond, and if you wish to sever it, you must face the truths buried beneath layers of deceit. My heart sank. The connections I'd been trying to distance myself from were no longer merely stories. They were very much alive. What if I refuse? I asked, the words tasting bitter and frightened against my tongue. Then you remain bound to the past, shackled by the choices of those who came before you, he said, his voice low. But know this, refusal carries its own price, one you may not survive. The smell of damp earth and foliage drifted between us, wrapping me in a sense of urgency. Memories of the letters, of unturned stones in my grandmother's attic, gnawed at me. Could I confront this legacy? Could I expose the truth without succumbing to it? I took a shaky breath. Then, help me find the truth. I forced the words out, my resolve hardening. I'll uncover whatever it is, even if it means facing my worst fears. Gabriel's expression shifted. Intrigue flickered in his eyes like a flame. Very well, I'll guide you. But remember, the deeper you delve, the more you unveil. Shadows can consume those who seek them. With that, he extended a hand as if welcoming me into the darkness. I hesitated, but then reached for him, my fingers brushing against his. A pulse of energy surged between us, and he nodded as if it sealed an unspoken bond. "A pact made," he whispered. "Now we must hurry. The shadows have ways of knowing." As we turned to walk back toward the farmhouse, eerie whispers filled the air, swirling like an invitation and a dire warning. I felt the weight of the unknown pressing down upon me, but it was too late to back out. I had stepped into this tangled web, and there was no escape without unraveling it. With each step, I recalled the layers of darkness that had crept into my life since that fateful stormy night. The stranger, the shadows, the whispers, and now Gabriel, a figure from my past transforming into a potential ally or adversary. The farmhouse loomed ahead, familiar yet foreign, transformed by shadows that pulsed with every heartbeat. I took a breath, ready to face the truths buried deep within the walls and the legacy of my family, that which had haunted me without me even knowing. Upon entering, the house felt alive, filled with an undercurrent of tension. The shadows writhed along the walls, and the air grew thick, threatening to suffocate me. "We need to go to the attic," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I moved toward the staircase, my heart pounding in rhythm with the pulse of the unseen. Gabriel followed silently, his presence both a comfort and an unsettling reminder of the shadows looming ahead. I climbed the stairs, each creak echoing like a warning bell. As I reached the attic door, a chill raced down my spine. The air felt charged, as if I were standing on the precipice of something monumental. I pushed the door open, the familiar scent of aged wood and dust flooding my senses. I glanced around, and my heart dropped. The boxes lay scattered, remnants of a life filled with hidden truths. "Help me find them," I urged, pulling open the first box, my hands trembling with anxious anticipation. Gabriel remained at the door, a patient sentinel, watching as I rifled through memories and half-forgotten secrets. Each letter, each photograph, was a thread leading back to the enigma of my father's death, the deals that bound our family, and the legacy that haunted me. As I dug deeper, I found the first marked box I had stumbled upon years ago. Within it lay a collection of old letters tied neatly with a faded ribbon. I pulled them out, uncovering flaking photographs of a younger version of my father, his eyes alight with a zest for life I had never known. Genesis of knowing washed over me as I slowly unfolded the letters. The ink had faded, but the weight of the words was clear. "Martha," I read aloud, my chest tightening. "There's a darkness that threatens our family. I fear the return of Benedict." The shadows flickered ominously. The room felt charged with a burgeoning storm. Gabriel stepped forward, his eyes locked on the letters. "Keep reading," he urged, a glimmer of something akin to fear in his voice. I took a deep breath, reading the rest of that first letter, each word unraveling secrets from generations past. "I made a choice. I cannot turn back," the letter continued, my heart racing as I pieced together the thread of my family's past. And then I felt it, a presence washing over me, a wave of shadows breaking from their confinement. The very fabric of the house seemed to shudder with familiarity. I looked at Gabriel, his expression grave. He too felt it, the shift in the air, the darkness unfurling like a living creature. "Whatever you've unleashed, you need to prepare yourself. The shadows are restless," he said, his voice taut. I looked back down at the letters, at the weight of my family's history resting in my hands, and I braced myself for what was to come. I would confront the darkness that was my inheritance, but the outcome was still veiled in uncertainty, a grim reminder of the unknowns lurking within the shadows. As I read on, the question echoed in my mind: What was the true cost of my legacy? And deep down, through the rising tension, I knew the answers were just beginning to unfold, leaving me perched between the light of revelation and the consuming depths of the shadows.